Trump boasts Iran is dying for a deal, while U.S. intelligence reveals Tehran aggressively rearms with advanced missile systems. Is Mojtaba's camp preparing for devastating round 2 confrontation right under Trump's distracted watch? The fragile truce serves purely as a smokescreen while Iran excavates hidden missiles and rapidly rebuilds its war machine? America makes stunning admission: Iran's core firepower remains completely intact despite weeks of relentless airstrikes. As diplomacy with Iran continues to stall, intelligence assessments suggest both Tehran and Washington are quietly preparing for the possibility of renewed large-scale warfare. U.S. officials have told NBC News that Iran is using the pause in hostilities to recover damaged military assets from the rubble left by earlier airstrikes, rebuilding its combat capacity. Iranian forces are reportedly digging out missile launchers and other hardware buried underground as a result of the opening phase strikes, restoring access to hardened facilities. These efforts form part of Iran's broader attempt to quickly rebuild its drone and ballistic missile capabilities, ensuring that key strike systems remain operational in the months ahead. U.S. assessments indicate that Tehran wants to be in a position to launch fresh attacks if President Trump decides to resume the war, treating the ceasefire as a tactical breathing space. This comes despite repeated U.S. claims that Iran's forces have been largely dismantled or degraded by the first wave of airstrikes and the subsequent naval blockade. Reports suggest that Iran still retains key elements of its missile arsenal, significant portions of its air force, and parts of its naval fleet, which have been repositioned and dispersed. American officials believe Tehran has preserved portions of its arsenal by spreading equipment across multiple locations, using decoys, and relying on underground or concealed storage sites. The situation comes as Trump weighs his next major move, with plans to meet his national security team to review the latest options on the Iran conflict. The head of U.S. Central Command is expected to brief Trump on a range of military options, including the status of the naval blockade and the readiness of other forces in the region. Other foreign policy events, including Trump's planned mid-May visit to China, are also expected to influence the timeline and intensity of any renewed action against Iran. The developments come as Trump told reporters on April 30th that Iran is dying to make a deal with the United States, even as both sides appear to be preparing for the prospect of a return to fighting.
Look, the country's doing really well, and that's despite a military operation. I don't call it a war. I'd rather have a military operation where really, Iran is dying to make a deal. I can only tell you that. I don't want to get into it, but they cannot be nuclear. Other than that, but their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone. Every ounce of any form of equipment practically is gone. You know, their drone factories are about 82% down, and their missile factories are almost 90% down. And many of their missiles have been knocked out. They used some, but we knocked out more than they used. And it's pretty amazing what's happened. They want to make a deal. But despite the fact that we are in what some people would call a war, we just hit a new high today on the stock market. We have S&P is through the roof. They're through the roof. If we didn't have that B-2 bomber, if we didn't go in and do what we did, we obliterated that nuclear capacity of theirs. And so they didn't get the nuclear bomb. If we didn't do that attack, should have been done long before I came along by other presidents or by another country or something. But it should have been done long before I came along. But they are in very bad shape. And they've got nothing going, including leadership. Their leaders are gone. Now they have a whole new, their first string leaders are gone. Their second string leaders are gone. Now we're dealing with their third string. But we'll see what happens. Can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And their economy is crashing. The blockade is incredible. The power of the blockade is incredible. They're not getting any money from oil. And hopefully it can be worked out very soon. Yeah.
Iran is proving to be very stubborn. The talks seem like they are stalled. Are you getting antsy to break the ceasefire?
Well, I don't know what stubborn is, because really nobody knows what the talks are except myself and a couple of other people. They want to make a deal badly. We have a problem because nobody knows for sure who the leaders are. It's a little bit of a problem, The leaders have been wiped out along with their military, almost all of their military. Think of it. 159 ships was their total Navy. 159 ships are gone. They're underwater. They're way below sea level. Sea level is a big difference. Pretty deep waters over there too. So I don't know that we need it. We might need it. We might need it.
Pentagon's estimate of $25 billion for the Iran war is increasingly being questioned by lawmakers, analysts, and media outlets as potentially far too low.
We have not yet received from the Pentagon the costs of the war. So just for the record, we'd like to get that as soon as possible. Certainly the munitions expended, but also underreported is we've had a fair amount of equipment destroyed, including 2 C-130s with the rescue of our downed airmen. So do you have either A, a cost estimate coming to us anytime soon, or B, a specific supplemental request?
Thank you for that question. So approximately at this day, we're spending about $25 billion on Operation Epic Fury. Most of that is in munitions. There's part of that is obviously O&M and equipment replacement. We will formulate a supplemental through the White House that will come to Congress once we have a full assessment of the cost of the conflict.
A CNN report has described the $25 billion figure as severely understated, highlighting that senior officials believe the true cost of the conflict could be much higher. According to several lawmakers and government officials, the actual cost of the war against Iran could be closer to $40 to $50 billion, especially once hidden and long-term expenses are factored in. The $25 billion number, presented by the Pentagon to Congress, largely reflects spending on munitions such as missiles, bombs, and precision strike weapons, rather than the full scope of the operation. Crucially, the Pentagon's current estimate does not appear to include the full cost of rebuilding heavily damaged U.S. military bases across the Middle East, which analysts say could add billions more. Iranian strikes in the early days of the war damaged at least 9 U.S. bases across the Gulf within a 48-hour period, stretching Washington's repair and replacement requirements. The targeted U.S. military sites included bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, Iraq, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar, underscoring how widespread the damage has been. Several high-value systems, including a THAAD battery in Jordan and similar missile defense assets in the UAE, were reportedly destroyed or severely degraded in those attacks. An American E-3 Sentry airborne early warning aircraft was also reported to have been destroyed in a strike on a Saudi airbase, compounding the financial and operational toll. The Pentagon's comptroller told lawmakers that most of the $25 billion has so far gone toward munitions, leaving the status of base repair costs less clear in the official accounting. America's War Secretary, Pete Hegseth, declined to clarify whether the cost of repairing damaged overseas installations is included in the Pentagon's $25 billion estimate, deepening doubts about its completeness. Earlier in the conflict, the Pentagon had told Congress that the war had already cost around $11 billion in just the first 6 days, illustrating how quickly expenditures can compound. The Defense Department has also requested over $200 billion in additional funding to support the ongoing war effort, covering weapons, logistics, and force structure changes. The Pentagon has acknowledged that it still lacks a complete estimate of the total damage to overseas installations, which complicates any reliable long-term budget projection. According to U.S. officials, allied nations that host American bases or share the security burden may be expected to help cover some reconstruction costs, further muddying the financial picture. Those rebuilding costs are reportedly not included in the Pentagon's proposed $1.5 trillion defense budget for fiscal year 2027, which focuses on baseline readiness and modernization rather than wartime contingencies. As a result, the full financial impact of the Iran war remains unclear, especially as the U.S. Army and other services continue to request new weapon systems and sustainment funding while the conflict wears on.